know about you, but it just kind of seems like a lot of TV shows just aren't clicking anymore. I think that there's so much potential with television shows right now. I think we're in like the golden age of television shows with streaming, and given Netflix and the rise of big budget television shows and more IP-centric things and more money being allocated to television shows than ever, also with a lot more access and cheaper access to things like, for instance, you could just have Netflix now that you did cable, you would think that television shows would be better than ever. But they're not, and I don't know, I just kind of like felt like talking about it. Last week was a very positive video, and I just kind of like want to complain this week. There's a lot of problems with television shows that are kind of making me upset, and this is from somebody who's loving a lot of television shows on right now. Okay, because television shows used to be an event. I remember when I was younger, the event television that was like The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones. I didn't watch that when I was on, but I remembered the buzz around whenever it came out. Just these huge, big television shows that I used to watch. Stranger Things, for instance, just every single time it dropped new episodes, it was like a blockbuster movie hit theaters. Everyone watched it. You knew everybody watched it. It was just this huge, like, monocultural event. And not even just whenever I was younger, that was just been the case since television's been around for a long period of time. I mean, look at things like the MASH finale, Friends. That's just off the top of my memory of just huge, huge shows that were popular. And television used to kind of represent that. But they don't have that feeling anymore. And why is that? Well, number one, we just don't have as many shows clicking. A lot of shows that really do take off is really just right place at right time. Particularly, like, again, Game of Thrones is really like the first television show you got to see with a huge big budget. Not only that, it was just good, so it was like it drew a lot of eyes because of the budget and because of the dragons and everything, but also was just really good. One gripe that I really have is that they're taking too long in between seasons. Okay, because one of my favorite shows, Severance, okay, love Severance, is just now starting filming season 3. Season 2 came out over a year ago. We used to be getting seasonal television on a television scale. Used to, television shows would come out from fall, and then they would end in May, and then they'd take a summer break, and they'd be writing while the other season's on. You know, they'd film over the summer, and then they'd just be a couple months behind, typically, is what would happen. And we used to get really, really good television shows that comes that. Mind you, they were also doing 24 episodes a season. Yeah, of course, we got some filler episodes, but I feel like there was a lot more character development, stuff like that, and that really made you get to know the characters a lot more. Now, we're lucky if we get a 10-episode television show. It's probably going to be 8, and it's not going to come out for another 3 years. And what's so upsetting is, for instance, I loved Pluribus on Apple TV, one of my favorite shows that came out recently. Love that show. Made by Vince Gilligan, the guy who did Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Okay. Both of those shows came on AMC, and they were yearly shows. I think maybe like Breaking Bad towards the end of it maybe slowed down a little bit, but it was never to this degree. And I think it's just insane that it's going to be till like 2028 before we get a season 2 of Pluribus. And that's just like something that's really upsetting. I think Stranger Things, we're going to talk about Stranger Things specifically because it's a really pivotal point in where we're at in television right now. But I think Stranger Things really set a precedent for taking longer seasons than they should have, and it really just trickled down to a lot of television shows that just quite frankly didn't need it. Also, you get interest in a television show, okay? So you get, for instance, Severance. A lot of people were interested in Severance season 2, but now when season 3 comes out, you're not building on the hype, you're almost restarting it from scratch, and it just really makes it hard to gain fandoms on shows, and they just really have a hard time taking off. And then, of course, if they don't get 8 million views or whatever in the first hour, they are gonna get canceled. And it's just insane because I think that they're setting themselves up to fail. Of course, no show's going to be amazing whenever there's only one season every 3-4 years. I just think that that's a problem. And look at the shows that are doing really good and keeping up with a new season every single year. Shows like The Pit, Only Murders in the Building. Those shows really have benefited from having new seasons come out every year because they've built momentum. You know, by the time that people recognize the show and remember the show, there's a new season coming out and they're able to build the momentum of, oh, hey, I just heard the last season of this was good. Here's an opportunity for me to check out a new season. And it also, there's a lot of episodes for people to get engaged with, and that really attracts a lot of people who are interested in wanting to start the new shows. And I think that that's really worked out for both of them. And the fact that a lot of these modern shows now haven't understood that that's the reason why it's doing well, it's just baffling to me. I think that this is a problem. Because like I said, we used to get shows like Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, Mad Men. Again, some of these made by creators who are just now spending years to make new seasons of shows, and it's baffling to me. It kills the hype, honestly. And also, I don't want to always have to rewatch the previous season of a show when a new one came out because I forgot what happened in the last season because it came out 4 years ago. And not only that, we're to get like 8-10 episode shows, and it's just so upsetting. Can we not at least get like 25 episodes if we're gonna be waiting like stinking 3-4 years for a new television show? It's baffling to me, and it's so upsetting. And I'll give Fallout its credit, and I think Amazon's pretty good at keeping shows going, you know, not canceling the shows and getting them out at a swift pace. And you can get them out in a swift pace and it can still be good. Honestly, the shows that are taking 8 years sometimes to get sequels, the second season is not very good. So let's get into the Netflix of it all, because Netflix really pioneered a lot of these issues. I think that Netflix, this is just an observation I have had, has plot lines and storylines that should be movies that are television miniseries. And My theory is that they're making these what could be movie plot lines longer for content watch time. That's my personal opinion. Call me crazy, because some of these television shows are great, but they don't need to be long shows. Stuff like The Watcher, Beef, the 4 seasons would have been phenomenal movies that I think just drug on in a television format, and they didn't need to be television format. That's just my hot take. You can disagree with me on that, but that's just like what I think is happening. You know, a show is a different storytelling format than a film, and vice versa. And I think to conflate both of them and to give them both of the same tropes isn't really making good content, especially for television, personally. That's just my thoughts. And I think in an age where you have like something like the MCU and like their cinematic universes and everything, where movies are trying to be television shows, you're also having television shows try to be movies, okay? Because the Stranger Things of it all. Let's get into it, okay? Stranger Things originated the idea that a television show should be copied like a film, okay? Season 1 plays like a movie that's just 8 hours. Every single season of that show plays like that. And I think that that's fine because, you know, it's nods to 80s films, so it's gonna obviously have that structure. It has more characters, so, you know, if anything, Stranger Things could use more episodes and more time to flesh a lot of the stuff out that they have. But that doesn't mean that every single show should be that way. I remember when 13 was short, you know, with stuff like the old Marvel Netflix shows like Daredevil and everything. Now we're at like 10, sometimes 8, sometimes 6 if it's like Squid Game or something. And not only that, like if it's like Disney Plus or something, not only are you gonna get like 6 episodes, those episodes might be like 30 minutes long. You might be literally dealing with like just an hour longer than a movie. Honestly, genuinely. And that's what's insane. I think something like Kenobi would have made a great movie, but just didn't have the storyline to contain a whole television show. And I think it kind of ruined the story that really had a lot of potential, and I'm kind of upset about it. I just think a lot of streaming services now are caught between giving things more episodes for the watch time, but then not having enough story or budget to do it. Because you can clearly tell when there's budget constraints. Things like the Disney Marvel shows where the first 5 episodes are like fluff and set up, and then they like kind of become the superhero at the end, and it's just a payoff to a future season or a movie that you're probably never gonna get. They just literally scream like, we wanted to make a show, but we didn't have the budget, which is insane, because why did you greenlight a show in the first place? For instance, look at the Lantern show. A Lantern show should be set in space. It should be Game of Thrones on different planets. Instead, we're getting like True Detective in Oklahoma with the Lantern show. And no hate if you're, you know, excited about True Detective in Oklahoma. No hate to any of that, but that's just not a Green Lantern show, you know? And I think, again, we're just like, we have to attach the IPs to stories that could just be normal. And also, I feel like there's just so much teasing with these stories that we don't really get to get into the meat of the storylines in the first place, and our budget constraints and not letting these characters be heroes robs us of the exploration of characters that we should be getting in an 8-10 hour television format with these characters. We forget when to end a show. I really do think that that's a problem now, is not knowing when to end a show. Something like Westworld, I haven't seen Westworld, just clarification, but I know the concept of Westworld, and I kind of know what happened with the show. As the seasons went on, it really just kind of lost its appeal, which was like the theme park and stuff, because they went in there less and less. And I honestly really worry about the same thing happening with Severance. I don't really know if I trust Severance going beyond a season 3. As much as I would love for them to make endless, amazing seasons content-wise, because I want the quality to be good, I don't know how many seasons we have of Severance before we kind of lose the plot a little bit. I kind of started to feel that way even a little bit with season 2. And now we just live in a time where it's just like, we'll just keep the show running until we decide to randomly end it on the final season. You know, not having an arc that's set out from season 1 to end the show in the right way. Right now I'm watching Succession. Really, really good show. I haven't finished it, so I could potentially hate the ending of it. But, you know, a show that it only ran 4 seasons. It's 10 episodes a season. It came out fairly quick. Again, I understand that we were dealing with like 2020 and the writer's strike and all of these different things that prevented these shows from working on traditional production schedules. And I understand that. But we're now in a time, again, with things like Pluribus and with things like Severance, where that's not the case anymore. And it kind of confirms what a lot of us were theorizing, is that those really didn't have anything to do with it in the first place. Succession has a fairly good turnaround. It knows when to end. It's just a really good show, and it's a really good build. And I think that that's great. And I don't ever feel like I'm watching a show that's built for like the second screenism of like what Netflix is trying to build right now. And I think that that's also another huge problem as well right now, is the second screen thing with television shows, where we have to over-explain everything over and over again for the people who aren't understanding or are on their phones. And I think that there's a place for that maybe in a sitcom or something, but I think when you try to take these dramas, again, I think that this is the problem with like Disney Plus television shows, when you try to take these dramas and these really serious storylines that have a lot of potential and dwindle them down into these like second screen oversimplified stories, whenever they're actually a lot deeper and your audience who's watching it would actually be able to understand them and isn't dumb, is really another problem as well that I really have a problem with. I think HBO does a really good job at getting seasons out quickly. I know, except for like Euphoria and stuff. I don't watch Euphoria, but I know that that obviously is one show that really took a long time to get seasons out. But I think other than that, they've done a pretty good job from my understanding. And I think that they also consistently deliver quality. And I think that that's a little bit different. I think they're probably the best of them all. I think Apple TV always delivers consistent quality, in my personal opinion as well, but they also take forever with their new seasons of their biggest shows. I also just don't know like how as a show writer, you don't just have maybe just a little bit of general idea with a season 2, because what do you mean you don't have a plan for season 2 at all? It's not like there's not even like an idea dwindling in the back of your mind or anything that you could even potentially set up in season 1. And I'm also tired of the idea of like setting something up into season 1 and not knowing where it's going to go, just like throwing things against the wall for entertainment value with no plan of them. There's something Vince Gilligan also said, I don't want to spoil the end of Pluribus, but something that happened there that's just really kind of annoying that I just don't really like. So yeah, this was just kind of my little rant about the modern state of television shows, not planning them out, taking way too long between seasons, not giving enough content. It's just really killing the hype for television shows. It's killing the buzz for television shows, and it's killing the quality of television shows. And I think that they maybe will get better. I think television right now is what the film industry was in maybe 2019 to 2023, 2024, where it got worse before. I think there's signs where film is getting better. But I think television's right in the thick of that. And so I hope it gets better, but I do think that we're in kind of the worst state of it right now. I think everything's just circling back to cable, and I think it's really interesting where we're going to go. And I really don't know. I think YouTube, honestly, too, genuinely, I think YouTube will be a very big factor in the future of television, particularly like late night television shows and sitcoms and things like that. So let me know what you thought about this below. Let me know your thoughts on the modern state of television. Please, please, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps support my channel, and peace out.